Welcome back to the Cap Report. We got another year of UFC predictions, as in this one we're going to talk UFC 283. Last year we went 105 and 70 on picks. We're 140 and 90 all time. I don't post all the picks here. There's a lot of fight night cards that I just do on like Verdict, and I track it myself. I didn't do a video on the card last week. We started the year off 3-2. I'll post my Verdict here so you can see. But I'm going to try to do more on fight night cards this year. We'll see, as the year plays out. But as I said, picks will also be on my Verdict account. But getting that aside, we'll go ahead and get into the predictions. Opening up the card, we have Johnny Walker versus Paul Craig in the light heavyweight division. Walker's ranked at 12, Craig at 9. Walker's coming off a surprising submission win over Ian Cutelaba, and Craig is coming off a decision loss to Volkan Ozdemir. This is an interesting clash of styles, as Walker's an explosive striker, Craig's more of a submission specialist. Walker has a huge reach advantage, as he's 3 inches taller and has 6 inches on Craig in reach. Even if Craig gets on the inside, I don't think he'll achieve much. Maybe he'll be able to get the fight to the ground from there, but looking at paths to victory, we'll start with Walker. I think this fight favors him a lot more. He's so much more of an explosive threat standing up, and I think as long as the fight stays standing, he should be able to win it. In my opinion, the biggest thing for Walker will be not to follow Craig down to the ground if he drops him. I don't trust him to not leave himself exposed for Craig to find like a limb to get a submission off of. And for Craig, I don't think he has what it takes to win the fight standing up. I do think he's going to have to find a way to get the fight to the ground, be it by takedown, trip, or even getting dropped himself and having Walker follow him to the ground. As I said, Walker's lack of fight IQ might be one of the biggest things to help him here. If he can get the fight to the ground, I think he can win it. I think that's the only way that he can win it. Walker's a minus 195 favorite, which I think is completely fine, and I think my pick is kind of obvious, but I'm going with Johnny Walker by second round knockout. I think this fight is pretty straightforward. Craig will struggle to do much standing up due to Walker's range and explosiveness, and eventually he gets caught. Next we go to the women's flyweight division, where 4th ranked Lauren Murphy takes on 6th ranked Jessica Andrade. Murphy's coming off a decision win over Miesha Tate, and Andrade is riding a 2-fight win streak with knockout wins over Cynthia Calvillo and a submission win over Amanda Lemos, both being first round finishes. Murphy's 4 inches taller than Andrade and holds a 5-inch reach advantage as well, but I don't know how much that will actually mean in this fight, as I see Andrade walking Murphy down. I don't think Murphy's got the power to make Andrade really worry about, walking her down and getting in on the inside. Looking at paths to victory, we'll start with Murphy. I think for this, she's going to need to use her range to keep her distance and pump out the jab a ton. I think she'll need to keep active footwork to not let Andrade get too close to her, and I think volume is her best path to victory here. I think if Murphy's going to win this fight, it's going to be by decision. I don't see her finishing Andrade. Yeah, I think that it's going to be keeping distance, just not letting Andrade really touch her. For Andrade, I think she's going to walk Murphy down and look to get inside. I could see her looking to trap Murphy against the fence, walking her down, cut off the cage, working in the pocket. I think body shots could be big for her, some of those hooks. I think that she'll notably have the power advantage in this fight, and if she can get in the pocket, as I said, she'll have a lot of success. Andrade is a minus 490 favorite, and Murphy's a plus 390 dog, and I really can't argue with these odds. I think that Murphy can hold out longer than people might expect, as I think she's got great willpower, heart, and can take damage, but I think once Andrade gets in close, it's only a matter of time until she finds one of those heavy hooks and finishes her. I'm going Andrade by second round knockout. I just feel Andrade is on another level for Murphy. In the feature fight, we move to the welterweight division, where 5th ranked Gilbert Burns takes on 12th ranked Neil Magny. Burns is coming off one of the fights of the year in 2022 and a decision loss to Hamzat Chimaev. Magny's coming off a submission win over D-Rod, and Magny has quite a size advantage, being 5 inches taller and has a 9-inch reach advantage over Gilbert Burns. It's a shame that a lot of guys are ducking Burns right now, Masvidal, but it's nice to see Burns still make it onto the Brazil card. It'll be interesting to see how Burns approaches this fight. He could try and stand with Magny. He has a lot of power in his hands and could find a knockout, but there is such a reach discrepancy that I do worry about him walking onto some straight shots. Burns has crazy power in those overhands, but I think getting the fight to the ground is a better approach for him here. Burns is definitely a better wrestler and BJJ specialist, which makes this approach much better for him. I think once he gets the fight to the ground, it's his world, and it's just a matter of time until he finds the finish. I really could see Burns winning in any way, knockout, submission, or decision. I just think that submission and decision are more likely than knockout. For Neil Magny, the path to victory is to keep this fight standing and trying to time Burns in the stand-up. Whether that's catching him shooting for a takedown with a knee or catching him standing up, Burns throws a lot of looping punches, and straight punches generally beat looping punches, so there's going to be openings there for him to land, especially with that range discrepancy. There's chances for him to land or catch Burns when he's trying to get inside. I think the jab will be important to use, as Burns has had issues with that in the past, in particular in fights where he is at a reach of disadvantage. So I think Magny's path to victory is going to be through knockout or decision here. Gilbert Burns is a minus 460 favorite, which might just be a touch too high for me, but I do think that he should be a heavy favorite. Magny's a plus 370 underdog. I see this fight playing out where the fight stays standing for most of the first round, maybe all of it, as the two kind of fill out the range. I think Burns tries to strike a little bit and maybe has a takedown or two stuffed, but by the second round, with more of a feel for the timing, I think Burns finds a takedown early, controls the fight on the ground for the majority of the round, landing a lot of ground and pound and ultimately finding a submission. My pick is Gilbert Burns by second round submission. Now we reach the title fights, and in the co-main event we have the first ever quadrilogy in UFC history as the flyweight champion Deiveson Figueiredo defends his belt against the interim champion Brandon Moreno. Both guys are coming off of wins. Moreno, a win in the summer over Kai Kara-France, and for Figueiredo, his last fight was a win a year ago over Brandon Moreno, albeit a bit controversial. I personally thought Moreno won that last fight, but I just think it's crazy looking back at this rivalry, how far these two have come. You know, their first fight being a draw, and from there, just a chess match of adjustments between their fights. A bad weight cut, and Moreno making the better adjustments to win the second fight definitively by submission. This led Figueiredo to seek the help of Henry Cejudo, helping him win the third bout of the two, and now both are having coaching changes to an extent going into this fight. Moreno had originally moved to John Krause's camp, but following all the controversy around Krause, Moreno's had to move. I think he's training at the PI right now, and he's training with Saif Saud. Figgy isn't training with Cejudo this time around. I think he's returned to his own gym in Brazil for this camp. That being said, getting into the fight itself, Moreno holds both a 2-inch height and reach advantage, and I think he'll need to try and use that more effectively this time around. Don't hang in the pocket to get caught by Figueiredo. Granted, part of this was due to the wider stance and stepping with the jab that Moreno throws. For him, the big adjustments here are going to be finding a way to deal with those leg kicks Figueiredo is throwing, either checking them or even attempting the Aldo style of lifting it back. But as I've said before, I don't see Moreno taking that more defensive approach that Aldo did. He's already at a power disadvantage, so I don't think it would hurt him to go less heavy on the lead leg, even if it takes some power of his shots. As I said, he's already at a power disadvantage anyway. If it means not taking that devastating damage to the leg early, which is going to set him behind and a bad tone for the rest of the fight, Moreno's a better technical fighter of the two and should be able to land combinations at will. But he has to be wary because any shot from Figueiredo can change the fight and still around. I'd like to see him utilize kicks more, leg kicks of his own to shave off some of Figgy's power as well, or even those heavy body kicks he threw at Kai Kara-France. I think it was a really good mix-up, especially because a lot of times Moreno goes to the head, so you don't see those body shots coming. Figueiredo's improved his wrestling, but even so, if he was to catch one of those kicks, I don't think Moreno's going to be worried that much about it if the fight goes to the ground. I think from a submission standpoint, he holds a bit of an advantage there. And then moving over to Figueiredo, I don't think for Figueiredo there is as many adjustments to be made yet. I think for him, a lot of what this is going to be is reacting in fight and in time to the adjustments of Moreno, because much of his advantages or what he did well should still be effective. For example, if Moreno doesn't fix his stance, the leg kicks will still be there and very effective. Even if he does change the stance, there should still be a possibility of leg kicks. Generally, you can land them on most guys. His power should still be there, which is his biggest advantage. In that third fight, there were rounds that he stole just by getting a knockdown, and that was his power advantage. Because he has such a power advantage, I think he needs to just find Moreno's timing, catch him either entering or during one of those combinations. As I said, the rest, in my opinion, will have to be based around what Moreno changes. As I said, for Figueiredo, I think that a lot of what he's done is going to work still. I think a lot of this fight depends on what Moreno does instead. Moreno sits as a small favorite right now, -125. Figueiredo being a live dog for sure at +105. I can really see this fight going either way. There's just so many variables. 35 is old for these lighter divisions, and it'll be interesting to see if that kind of catches up to Figueiredo at all here. It's been a year since he fought last, which I think both hurts and helps him here. You know, it hurts him as, you know, it's a long time out of the ring, but you know, when you're older, it might help you recover a little more. At the same time, I do think that it's good because he took some damage in that last fight, and so to get a chance to recover a bit is going to be nice. I think this fight is a toss-up that's ultimately going to come down to the in-fight adjustments. I can see either fighter winning by any way, and the way I see this going down is similar to their last fight. You know, a lot of exchanges, maybe Figueiredo steals a round or two from a knockdown, and I think that's similar to the Kai Kara-France fight. Moreno's going to have to make some adjustments in the fight. He's going to throw that body kick a little bit later on, and that's going to give him a big boost in helping gas Figueiredo, helping him, I think, find a TKO in the 4th round. My pick is Brandon Moreno by 4th round TKO. Finally, we have the main event for the vacant light heavyweight title, Glover Teixeira versus Jamal Hill. Hill's riding a 3-fight win streak, all knockout wins over Jimmy Crute, Johnny Walker, and Thiago Santos. Glover's coming off of what was another one of the fights of the year of 2022, where he lost by a 5th round submission to Yuri Prochaska. That being said, it was a fight people were saying he was going to get slaughtered in, but he ended up holding his ground and striking particularly well, better than many of us expected. Getting into the fight, I'm interested to see how Hill approaches this fight and how aggressive he'll be early on. He showed to have a solid gas tank in the Thiago Santos fight. He's so explosive, has a lot of power in those hands. If he can get into some exchanges similar to what Glover was in his last fight, I could see Hill finding a knockout here. That being said, I think that that's his main path to victory here. He could find a decision, but I think that he's a lot more limited than Glover in the sense of how he can win. For Glover, you have to ask the question, what does he have left in the tank for his career? He did take a ton of damage in that last fight, and he's up there in age. But granted, light heavyweight, you can age a little, you can go a little longer than you can at the lower weight classes. Both of those things are positive checks, and I think this matchup looks good for him. He's got great BJJ and very good boxing skills, and they can stand with Hill somewhat, but I do think that his path to victory is better on the ground. In Hill's last fight, he did a decent job defending takedowns, but struggled to get back up to his feet against Thiago Santos, who is nowhere near the grappler that Glover is. I think that this fight, if Glover gets this fight to the ground, he can find a finish that way, or he could tire him out, allowing him to be more successful against Hall in the striking later on. You know, once he's taken that explosiveness away from him, he can get into exchanges a lot more confidently and not have to worry about being, you know, rocked as much. Paul's a minus 140 favorite, which I can understand, but I somewhat disagree with. Glover's a plus 120 underdog. How I see this going is Jamal Hill having early success in the stand-up, but Glover adjusting and getting the fight to the ground eventually. I think it'll be a bit like a wet blanket then, you know, once he gets the fight to the ground, Hill's not gonna be able to get back up, and I think there's gonna be a lot of ground and pound damage. My pick's gonna be Glover by 3rd round submission. So yeah, those are my picks. How do y'all feel about them? What are your picks? As always, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and I appreciate all 391 of y'all. This has been the Cap Report.